Hey everyone, it's Aaron Schechter from 365shaves.com. I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about a razor that is really becoming popular and I've been hearing about on the Wet Shaver Review on really a daily basis. I actually had a really long conversation about it last night with a couple guys, and that razor in question is the Lutz razor. It was manufactured back in the 1930s during World War II era Germany, and it was made in Solingen, Germany, which is very, very famous for their straight razors. Like, for example, the most popular is probably Dovo. And they all say Solingen steel. The steel that came from Germany is outstanding. It still is to this very day. Now, in 1930, the world was a very different place during the 30s. We were at war, okay? Basically, brass in the US, like companies like Gillette, we were still using brass and then coating it with nickel. Now, the production was decreased by Gillette in the 1930s in order to support the war efforts to produce, unfortunately, and it's kind of funny coming from me, unfortunately, to produce bullets and stuff of that nature for the soldiers that were fighting the war. Germany did the exact same thing. So they used a metal called Zamak, okay? Z-A-M-A-K. Zamak is basically a step above pot metal, okay? Now, that being said, it is extremely light, very durable, lasts a long time, and actually a lot of people really like Zamak, and it's not a good or a bad thing. There's no brass in a Lutz razor, okay? There's a couple other offshoot brands that came out during that time from Germany, but Lutz was a very popular one. The most popular of them was the Lutz slant razor, which is this guy right here. Now, when you buy a Lutz razor, it comes in a box a lot like this, okay? And it is going to have the Lutz name, say something in German on it. It'll have a lot of German on one side, but then ironically, on the other side, it's going to be in English. Now, there's a lot of speculation with these boxes that these boxes were actually produced in the 1960s, that the razors were made in the 30s, that someone had found these razors in the 60s, recreated boxes for them, and placed the 1930 razors in it. I cannot prove or disprove that. It's just a claim that I've read on the internet, and does make somewhat sense because the last thing Germany is going to do during the 1930s is write how to use their razor in English. It says, use for your shave only Lutz razor blades and utensils. These are famous all over the world for their quality. I know a thing or two about war times, and usually you're not going to market to what you consider the enemy. So that being said, there is a little bit of credence to that possibility. Now, let's get back to the razor itself. I want to point out a few things. Number one, this is Zamak metal, okay? It's very light. This is a three-piece razor. As you see, three pieces. You have your cap, you have a base plate. Now, I'm going to place the cap down for a moment, and I want to show you this cap, the base plate. The base plate, if you notice, has scallops in it. You have large scallops on one side, and you have a lot of small scallops on the other. That's important to remember. Remember that, okay? That's very important. I'm going to set down this base plate now. Now, I'm going to pick up a completely different razor, and this is the handle. Take very close note of this. Hexagonal, with a very classic design on it. Now, I want to pick up another razor because I want to see what everyone else's reaction is. Here's a Merkur 1904 aka 41C. Does that look familiar at all, that handle? Now the head, it's an open comb head, which Lutz also made an open comb. My guess is that Merkur actually took the Lutz design handle and put it on the classic 1904 or 41C, which everyone calls the old type, the Gillette old type style. It's really not. It's actually the old style Lutz German handle. So there's a little bit of trivia for you, okay? I thought that was pretty cool. Now, Lutz is known for being a very, very efficient slant razor. I was turned on to it by a member of the Wet Shaver Review, and he made it sound like it was the best thing that came out since sliced bread. I'm always a little bit skeptical when someone tells me that as a vintage collector and I don't know about it, or at least I don't know that much about it. I kind of am a little bit like, okay, I'm willing to give it a shot, you know, if the price is fair. I'll give it a shot, I'll give it a try, but until I try it, you know, I'm going to take it with a grain of salt. Not that I didn't trust them, it's just until I try it, I just chalk it up to, you know, I need to see. So, when I got this razor, it came in said Lutz box, and there was brown paper on it. It was a new old stock condition, okay? Whether it was from the 30s or 60s, I don't know. And it came with the razor, as well as it came with a couple of actual, if I can get it out, a couple of actual vintage Lutz blades. As it says on the box, make sure you use it with your Lutz blades for the best quality shave. I happen to use different blades in it, and I don't see how it makes a difference personally. Just whatever works for you, I think works best for it. So, that being said, the very interesting thing about the Lutz razor is the top cap, okay? And we just found this out pretty much last night. Now, I'm going to try to get this close enough for everyone to see. I have in my hand just a generic derby blade just for demonstration purposes. Once you put your blade in, okay? Now, depending on the direction, and what I mean by direction of the top cap, and I'm going to get kind of close, if you have it facing this way, or you have it facing this way, when you put it on the base plate, will dictate which has a larger gap, believe it or not, on the base plate. So let's try it this way first, okay? I'm going to try it this way. We're going to drop it on. You notice it has the typical center post where you screw on, and then two bullet points where you can to secure the blade in place. Now I'm tightening it down. I want to make sure it's fully tightened, and it is. And the way I have it set right now, and I'm going to get it in very close, okay? You'll notice that this is the small scallop side, this is the large scallop side. Not sure if you're going to be able to see this or not, but I'm going to get it in as close as I can. The small scallop side actually has a larger gap. The gap on this side is actually greater than the gap on that side. Now, if I was to just do something as simple as release the handle again, take it off the base plate, flip the base plate around, put it back in, tighten down the handle, making sure it's fully tightened. Now, here's the large scallop side, here's the short scallop side, or the smaller scallop side. Now the smaller scallop side has a smaller blade gap, and the large scallops have the greater blade gap. That's the large side now, that's the small side. Now, another very prominent member in the wet shaving community has made a very, very strong claim that the large scallop side is supposed to be the more aggressive side. I happen to tend to believe that he's probably correct, that the larger scallop side is supposed to be more aggressive than the small scallop side, and the large scallops were an indicator that there's a large gap, and the small scallops are an indicator that it's a small gap. So what's really cool about this slant, and people call this a true slant, is number one, it is a slant razor where you get that twisting scythe type effect to it, so it's more effective in cutting the hair, as well as each side has a different aggression level. So on one side, with the large scallops, the way I have it set up right now, it has a larger gap of the blade. On the smaller scallop side, it has a smaller gap, so it's less aggressive. So what's really neat about this is really not only a slant razor in the traditional sense, but it is also dual aggression. So you could have a more aggressive side or less aggressive side. So let's just say you're going to do 3 passes. You might want to start off with the large scallops. And I have to be careful here so I don't cut my mustache off. That would be really bad and it would be on video. But you can, use your large scallop side to do, your reduction passes, maybe your first and second pass. Maybe you're against the grain if you have sensitive skin, or you just don't need that, because this is actually fairly aggressive, this razor. You can go over to the small side, to the small scallop side, and do that for your against the grain pass. Let's say you're a lady or a gentleman that has sensitive skin, period, but you want to get away with, just 1 or 2 passes, but you can't stand the aggression of that larger scallop side. You have the option of just using the small scallop side to do your shave. It's a very versatile razor, very versatile. Now, I paid $60 for this, and I got it from a guy in, he's out of New York City, and I don't believe in promoting for different companies directly for direct sales. I do not do BST on the Wet Shaver Review, so I'm not going to really say out loud who it is. If you private message me, I've actually turned a couple people over to this gentleman, and they bought Lutz razors, and they happen to love them as well, but I'm not going to name drop here on the video. So that being said, this is the Lutz razor. And oh, finally, one last thing, and here's another claim I cannot confirm. Now, if Greg from Icon wants to chime in on this, I believe he's a member here. If not, Matt Pisarcik might know the answer to this, or another Icon distributor. I have been told by pretty reliable sources in the wet shaving online community that the Lutz head was actually what Icon based their slant razor upon. Their slant razor head upon is based on this Lutz razor. That's another little bit of trivia that goes along with the Lutz razor and its history. Pretty cool. So that being said, I'm wielding a double-edged razor, swinging it around with a loaded blade in it. Probably not the smartest thing I've ever done in my life. So on that note, I'm Aaron Schechter from 365shaves.com. I hope you have found this informative about the Lutz razor and a little bit about the usage. Remember, the top cap on this dictates which side of the razor will become the greater gap, and that choice is yours. Doesn't matter if it's the small side or the large side. It's just easier to remember, and what I plan on doing is I'm going to put a little red dot on each side of the top cap, so I always put the top cap on the same way every single time, and hopefully that will alleviate the question of which is the more aggressive side without me having to look at it every single time to try to figure out, oh, this is the large side, bigger gap, smaller gap, so that's just a little tip that I'm going to give, that I'm going to personally try to alleviate that problem. So once again, Aaron Schechter, 365shaves.com. Hope you enjoyed. God bless, and go get your shaves on. Take it easy. Bye-bye.